Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar entitled Breaking Down Barriers, Lifelong Learning for Diverse Groups of Refugees and Migrants in Cities. My name is Edith Hammer, and I'm a program specialist at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, and I'm also part of the UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities. Today's session marks the conclusion of our 2025 GNLC webinar series, and it also offers us a valuable opportunity to welcome the new member cities joining the GNLC this year. Let me begin by giving you a brief overview of today's agenda. We will start with the welcome and short presentation of the new learning cities. I will then move into the main topic of the webinar. We have several presentations today. We will start with Ms. Audrey Hickox from the International Organization for Migration, IOM, followed by Mr. Amir Radfa. He's from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. And after these inputs, we will move to city presentations. We have with us the learning cities of Damietta in Egypt and the city of Nairobi in Kenya. Following these interventions, we will then proceed to an open discussion with questions from the audience if time permits. So we have a quite packed agenda today, and I would like to ask all speakers to stick to their time strictly, so that we will be able to also have questions in the end. Before we start with the thematic of this webinar, let me provide you some technical points very briefly. First, this event is being recorded and it will later be available via the UR website. Secondly, we warmly invite you to please use the chat box for any comments that you may have for today's webinar, and also to possibly let us know where you're joining from. And you can use the Q&A box for any questions that you have for our speakers. So we'll do our best to address them and to possibly also have the speakers to answer to them live. Then the third point on the technical details, interpretation is available throughout today's webinar in Arabic, French, Spanish, and Chinese. I would like to warmly thank all of our partners who are supporting us with language interpretation, namely Chinese interpretation is provided by the Shanghai Municipal Institute for Lifelong Education, SMILE, in the People's Republic of China, and for Arabic, interpretation is provided by the Regional Center for Quality and Excellence in Education, RCQE, under the auspices of UNESCO, located in Jubail, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much to our partners for making this webinar more accessible and inclusive through your support. So now we will move to a very exciting start of this webinar. It is my great pleasure to move to this special moment for our community. As many of you know, the UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities continues to grow and evolve each year. This year, we welcome 72 new cities from 46 countries to the GNLC in recognition of their strong commitment to making lifelong learning across all ages a reality at the local level. With this expansion, the GNLC now comprises 425 cities from 91 countries, collectively supporting lifelong learning opportunities for nearly 500 million citizens. And already you can see on the screen, we have these 72 new cities, and we would just like to share some very brief impressions and photos from these new members. The members are from diverse regions, cultures, and contexts. They share a common vision, a commitment to making learning accessible, inclusive, and transformative for all residents. And I would now like to invite you to take a moment to appreciate the diversity and dynamism of all the new cities joining us this year. These new members certainly bring fresh perspectives and innovative practices to our network. And we look forward to learning from their experience and supporting them as they begin their journey within the GNLC. In this context, the GNLC medium-term strategy 2025 to 2030 provides the guiding framework for our collective work, emphasizing collaboration, innovation, and lifelong learning as essential drivers of sustainable development. We are very pleased to share that the GNLC Academy will offer dedicated opportunities for training, peer learning, and city-to-city exchange, creating new spaces for learning and inspiration and partnerships across the network. So all of these new opportunities for capacity building and exchange will be available to all new and existing members of the GNLC. For more information about these mechanisms and about how to engage actively in the network, we will share will be shared during a series of onboarding meetings to introduce our work, and we will host these with the new member cities in January 2026. These meetings will give us an opportunity to connect individually with each new learning city, clarify key processes, and support the smooth transition of the new cities into the GNLC community. So all further details will be sent to the new member cities by email. Once again, as we are advancing through this introduction of the new cities, I would like to express my warmest congratulations to all new members, and we're truly delighted to have you in the network. And I invite you to join the rest of this presentation to get some insights into the diversity of new members that joined this year. Yeah, so we are very much looking forward to collaborating with these new cities, and also just to mention before we move to the thematic part of this webinar, that of course all new cities, as everyone else, are very welcome to actively contribute and present in one of the future webinars that we will have next year. So now let's move to the topic of today's session, in which we'll discuss ways to support lifelong learning opportunities for diverse groups of refugees and migrants. And we are very pleased to have with us Ms. Audrey Hickox. She's a project manager at the International Organization for Migration, IOM. And Ms. Hickox, you have 8 minutes, and I kindly ask you to stick to the time. We are very much looking forward to your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to this important discussion. I work for IOM headquarters as a thematic specialist on migrant integration and inclusion, as well as regular pathways. But previously, I was also a specialist for the organization on migration's relationships with cities. So this topic is very, very close to my heart. And just to kind of start off the discussions, I just wanted to flag that when we're talking about lifelong learning for refugees and migrants in cities, we are talking about more than education. We're talking about survival, dignity, and opportunity. We're also talking about how migrants and refugees contribute to thriving and prosperous cities through their learning skills and contributions. So I'm very pleased to present a little bit of background context, but also the challenges we face. And I have some practical solutions that might be adopted, but I don't think I have a lot of time to go into all of them. And I'm really pleased and really looking forward to hearing from the cities also who are joining us today. You know best the solutions in your context. But just before I dive totally in, this picture actually comes from one city that I have had the privilege to work with. Tangier in Morocco, I worked on a global program where these people in the photo actually were receiving training courses that were linked to and kind of embedded in the municipal service offering and with local NGOs, which linked training to apprenticeships and internships for young migrants in the community. Okay, great. So, um, just as a little bit of context and background, I'm sure you're all very familiar with lifelong learning as a concept. But in the context of migration, what are we learning and what are we learning for? It's really learning to access well-paid, decent work, for integration success and for adaptability in a changing world. And learning means, of course, developing skills. And yes, those are technical and employment related skills, but they're also digital skills and financial literacy and language and navigational, social, and cultural skills. These are all essential for thriving in urban environments. And so what you'll see on the screen is a little bit of IOM's approach to migrant inclusion, which is exactly this. We focus on capacities and knowledge and from a holistic, multidimensional perspective. Now, what do we know about cities, migrants, and lifelong learning? We know that many migrants and refugees do live in cities, not in rural areas, and not often in camps outside of city centers. These are just a couple that I highlighted here, but there are many, many more. And we also know that there's great availability and access to learning institutions in city centers. And so that means that people, migrants who are living outside of the city centers, often have to frequently travel to cities to access learning. And if they aren't in the city, they can be excluded from these opportunities. We also know that cities and educational institutions are increasingly creating and driving regular migration pathways and opportunities for people to move safely. So, an example is that a lot of cities host large universities, and universities bring in students as well as teachers who are migrants to support that city learning center. We also know that universities in major cities are opening scholarships. They're sponsoring refugees as students through what's called complementary education pathways, but they also drive education migration pathways in general. And there are also increasingly city as well as provincial or regional led labor migration pathways. There's a few highlighted on the screen, but there are many more than this. And this is really a growing trend. We know also that language learning, migrant resource centers, and a lot of the administrative procedures that migrants and refugees have to go through quite regularly are often in cities. Um, One last point is that cities also have enormous labor force needs, and migrants can help to fill those needs and to create stronger economies and more future forward economies as skills and labor markets diversify. And so this is one example of very recent research from the migrant Mayor's Migration Council, C40 Cities, and Climate Migration Council. And it is saying that there are a lot of green job shortages, primarily in construction, transportation, and waste sectors. But what's interesting about this study is that they did this at a city level. So they looked across 25 cities in 7 countries to really identify this as an enormous opportunity for potential and recommended two simultaneous fixes. So upskilling local workers, but also reducing barriers to migrant employment through skills and upskilling. What else do we know about migration and learning? So there's a lot of data on this slide. I'm not going to go through all of it. Many of you might be familiar with this. The first 2 points come from a tool that IOM has developed and piloted in partnership with an education institution, which is an attempt to create kind of scores to better track and understand migrant integration in their communities. It's been piloted in 4 or 5 countries. And so what we find from this tool is integration scores do increase with educational attainment. But this is also gender specific. So even women who have equivalent education backgrounds and qualifications still score lower on integration outcomes. We also know migrants and refugees have unequal access to and are sometimes even legally excluded from learning and to employment, or are confined to specific sectors or particular types of education and learning opportunities. And of course, this is harder for women, people with disabilities, and certain migrant populations with certain characteristics when we get to the full diversity of individuals. We also know, and we have to keep in mind first and second generation migrants and their families in the diaspora, as well as migrant children. This is all the success, the outcomes all vary significantly. But it's important not to just focus on new arrivals, but also migrants from all backgrounds and contexts. And we also know that even when migrants arrive with high skills and education backgrounds, they often fall into lower paid jobs. They have difficulty finding employment in the sector that they're trained in. This is often due to qualification recognition challenges, but also the need to find employment very quickly to pay for their family's needs. One last point I will leave us with for this section is that migrants are adaptable and they learn every day simply to survive and to contribute to their new communities. They have immense, diverse, and robust soft skills. They know multiple languages. They are learning really, truly every day. I am a migrant myself. I come from a migrant background. It really is an immense learning experience, just moving country and moving community. And so folding that into the way we think about this topic is really important as well, I think. And one kind of last statistic here, which I find very interesting, is there is some evidence to say that when migrants are in school, they have stronger integration outcomes overall across various different dimensions. So, particularly economic and social integration improves, but also the others, right? So, this can be due to the fact that learning centers really are spaces that facilitate integration, that facilitate inclusion, that get people from different backgrounds to mix and to learn about each other and to create community.
Excuse me,
And
Audrey, to quickly
yes,
interrupt.
the
We have
end of
already
the
passed the 8 minute
okay.
time mark. May I give you like a minute to focus on one particular slide that you would still like to introduce? Thank you.
Perfect. Yes. So, I think this is a very easy, self-explanatory one. There are several core challenges here, access, diversity and inclusion, and quality. But one way that we can resolve this, and I'm sure you will all talk about this further, is really by creating ecosystems of support in cities that span pre, across to post arrival. So, curriculum development and really pre-departure orientation training linked to then reception services, information orientation sessions, cultural orientation sessions, and then enabling services after that for longer term integration and support that can be language training, skills development training and TVET, employment related services, and counseling. And then really there's the whole larger ecosystem around this, right? Matching individuals with employment and education sectors, cross-cultural and social mixing activities, community and employment partnerships, and competency development, not only of individuals here, we're also talking about NGOs, service providers, municipal services, and everything that goes along with that. I'm also happy to share the slides afterwards that have a few more examples. I will just mention here quickly, we have recently released some research on the lessons from Ukraine, which is quite an interesting case study around the connection between underemployment, skills development, and kind of advancing for better employment outcomes in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Audrey. And I'm sorry that we don't have more time. I know that you had prepared a very holistic presentation, also with a lot of practical insights. But yeah, thank you so much for providing us this presentation on the situation of different groups of migrants and refugees and the challenges and capacities they face when integrating into a new society, and also how this can be supported within the context of cities. So we will now move on to the second presentation of today. We will hear from Mr. Amir Radpa. He's the TVET officer in the education of the Sustainable Response Service of UNHCR. Amir, again, you have 8 minutes and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. You have my screen and can you hear me well? Yeah, just to confirm.
All is very well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much again. Thanks to UNESCO colleagues for having UNHCR included for this opportunity. And I guess this is the first interaction we as UNHCR, we are engaging with this great network. I'm really happy to have this opportunity. And thanks again for giving us this space. Today, I'll focus on one specific part of lifelong learning in cities, which is already included in your agenda, called as workplace learning, and what it means for refugees at tertiary education level. Because I'm working as TVET specialist with tertiary education team of UNHCR based in Copenhagen. We cover basic education, which includes also secondary, upper secondary, and then tertiary includes vocational education. We call it higher vocational education. Of course, we have also TVET components for refugee support under livelihoods and economic inclusion. So my focus today will be mainly on tertiary education program of UNHCR to support refugees' access to higher education scholarships, but specifically the component of work-based learning. So refugees, of course, are increasingly living in cities. They study in different universities, in colleges, but many still struggle to get access to really appropriate work-based learning opportunities. So this is the main topic of today's discussion with you all. Of course, we all know the numbers. The figures are so dynamic, and these are like the latest figures we had from 2024. That it shows that the numbers of people forcibly displaced and forced to flee their homes than ever before is increasing, and the numbers are really rising very fast. So many refugees, youth are reaching tertiary education. Often after overcoming major barriers with the support of different international NGOs, donors, specifically with UNHCR, we support refugees' access to higher education. And we encourage them to study actually those fields of studies in high demands from the labor market side, like engineering, STEM, health, education, business. And they really want to contribute to the cities where they live in the host countries, and also after getting the chance for complementary pathways through education, through labor mobility. But still, we see so many challenges around access to work-based learning. So, and this is exactly we want to highlight with the participants today. And of course, we have some figures we would like to share during this very limited time. The Learning Cities framework, I'm happy to see that is already the framework provides a strong vision of cities as places where learning supports social inclusion, economic participation, and resilience. And tertiary education, of course, is a key part of this vision, especially for young people preparing for work. For refugees, access to higher education is growing. As I mentioned, we strongly support with the partners to increase the access of refugees to different vocational and, of course, academic programs at higher education tertiary level. But the transition from education to work, which we may call it like learning to earning process, still is very complicated. At the central of this actually transition from education to work, we see the importance of work-based learning and workplace opportunities for refugees. So that's exactly it comes like under this specific topic of how really this cities and learning cities can provide kind of more access and learning opportunities through different channels and through different networks. So this is really something still it's a big missing component of our work. So we actually see the just to illustrate that I'll briefly refer to UNHCR DAFI program. This is like German supported. Traditionally, actually, it's mainly funded by German government. Now we have other actually donors putting their investments for this tertiary education program support of refugees. DAFI has supported refugee students in tertiary education for more than 30 years now across many countries. It shows that when refugees are supported to access higher education, they really perform well. They complete their studies, but however, moving from graduation to employment still remains as one of the biggest challenges when we look into the outcome of the education. And it's not just for refugees. I guess, you know, I mean, we can agree that this is all for nationals. Specifically, most of the refugees, they're living in low mid-income countries. And this is really big challenge in many countries after finishing the education. In many cities, barriers to workplace learning are not about motivation or really ability. They are about how systems are organized. A student may study at universities, but access to any sort of traineeships or workplace learning opportunities, not just for increasing their technical skills, but even softer skills and different types of skills, which already mentioned by my colleague from IOM, including digital skills, green skills, communication, problem solving, team working. This all needs actually to be involved in different interactions with the society, in different service sector, in manufacturing, even in small workshops after finishing the education, specifically for refugees. Still, this is really big area of challenge and work. What we see from DAFI data, and this is from the evaluation of DAFI program we had from 2022, which was really big evaluation covering around 60 countries where we had the DAFI students. We can see that the minority of refugees at tertiary student, at tertiary education level, they had access to internship or similar opportunities, and women, of course, face even more challenges. And where refugees are able to participate in labor market, of course, access to workplace naturally, and then the access to better transition from education to labor market and positions in different sectors is increasing, and it improves. And this shows how closely learning outcomes are linked to the wider environment around students. It's not just about access to education. We really need to make sure that they have opportunity also to get the skills, practical skills from the society they live. Of course, again, you know, I mean, I would like to highlight that this matters because education without practical experience often leads to delayed transition, and that delayed transition means sometimes for refugees in host countries before getting resettlement, even sometimes more than 10 years. You know, I mean, we have different actually cases in different countries. Sometimes even they lose their skills from their education from the universities, like the nursing education they received from their origin country, but then getting stuck in host country before going to receiving country, they already lose a lot of their actually skills. So this is really important, and that's why we just keep highlighting the importance of this component. Work-based learning is often the bridge between education and meaningful participation in the local economies. And again, we really need to work together because learning cities are well placed to support this transition. When we see the manifest and also the manual of learning cities, they can bring together universities, and that's of course already in the concept of learning cities. It's already written clearly, and this is exactly what we as UNHCR are also trying to do with the different partners, with the education providers, with employers, with chambers of commerce, with different actually private sectors. They can help make workplace learning opportunities more visible and accessible, specifically for refugees, and they can pilot inclusive approaches that work within existing systems, because we as UNHCR really don't want to create any parallel system. The target and the aim for us is like just to make sure that the refugees are included in the national systems. But that national system is already actually sometimes, very limited in terms of access to work-based learning, even for the nationals. So UNHCR role, it's very clear to support this process. We provide evidence. Like recently, actually, we are commissioning a study in Kenya, Ethiopia, to go to deep of understanding on the Prospects project to see what's happening around this work-based learning for the tertiary education students in these two countries. And we'll start this study, I guess, from January or latest by early February. So hopefully after 4 or 5 months, actually, we'll get more data to see what's happening in two countries specifically, and what sort of suggestion and recommendations we can bring up with this study. So of course, with the partners, ILO, UNESCO, GIZ, different partners, we are specifically really keen to work with their network to understand more the solutions, because we know a lot about actually the challenges, but now it's time for us actually to expand our partnership. And I'm happy that today we got this also opportunity to be part of this really good conversation and great network, and also to give this message to the participants, to the great network of learning cities, that we as the UNHCR, we really want to support refugees access, displaced people access to any sort of opportunities in the societies, even when they finish education and they are waiting for their mobility, even for their return to go back to their home countries. It's really important for all of us to make sure that we are really utilizing the existing time for them, to strengthen their skills for a better future for the societies and for their families, for themselves. So thank you so much again for the opportunity, and I'll stop here. And I look forward to the discussion and maybe to have more exchanges throughout the Q&A session. Thank you so much again.
Yes, thank you so much to you. Thanks for providing such a rich presentation, also highlighting the challenges that persist when it comes to workplace learning and the transition into the labor market for refugees, and also how learning cities can support that. And you've highlighted the importance also of coordinating different support systems and not bringing in parallel structures, but really embedding the efforts of different international organizations and national partners into one coherent strategy, engaging employers and enabling access. So thank you so much. And it will be, I see some questions already in the Q&A, so I think we will have a quite rich discussion also later on.
Thank you so much again. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Just to remind everyone, if you have a question, please post it in the Q&A box, and we will get back to it during our discussion slot. It is now my honor to give the floor to Mr. Ayman El-Shehabi, the governor of the learning city Damietta in Egypt. An important note, his presentation will be delivered in Arabic. To follow this intervention in English, please make sure that you're on the English audio channel. And to follow the presentation in Arabic, please navigate to the original audio channel. And everyone else, please stay in the channel where you are. Mr. El-Shehabi, you have 5 minutes for your city presentation, and I kindly ask you, as with all presenters, to stay to the allotted time. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
I would like first to thank you all for having me here and giving me the chance to cooperate in providing and exchanging the experiences and common ambitions for the success and progress have been done in the area of migration and how to work with refugees and such things. And allow me to speak in Arabic in the presentation. But first, I would like to tell you that it will be in 4 parts. Especially, I will tell you a little bit about Domiata, and then how the partners of the success story will I will discuss, and then all the services which is provided to the refugees, and all the division, and then the vision of the Domiata to deal with the refugees. So I will transfer to Arabic. محافظة دمياط تقع في جزء متميز من موقع جغرافي من العالم، فهي تطل على البحر المتوسط ونهر النيل وبحيرة البرول. محافظة دمياط هي تقع في شمال الدلتا، وتبعد 15 كيلومتر من مصب النهر في البحر المتوسط. والنهر النيل بيقسمها إلى جزئين. من الشمال يحدها البحر المتوسط، ومن الشرق بحيرة المنزلة، ومن الجنوب محافظة الدقهلية. واشتهرت المحافظة بالصناعات المختلفة، أشهرها الأساس الخشبي والصيد. تمتلك أصلا بعض الصناعات الأخرى مثل صناعة الألبان والجبن، وأيضا صناعات الحلويات. ولدينا موقع خلاب في مدينة راس البر، وحيث يلتقي نهر النيل في آخر نقطة ليه مع البحر المتوسط. دمياط مش من المحافظة اللي فيها تجمعات كبيرة من اللاجئين، ولكن احنا عندنا في ضرورة للاستعداد لأي استقبال أي أعداد. احنا عندنا تقريبا العدد المسجل للاجئين حوالي 12,194 لاجئ، ولكن احنا فعليا في عدد أكبر من كده بكتير ولكن غير مسجلين. الأغلب الجنسيات بتكون من سوريا والعراق والسودان واليمن. وأيضا بنستقبل بعض الأخوة الفلسطينيين يتلقوا العلاج ويعودوا مرة أخرى بعد تلقي العلاج والعناية اللازمة إلى غزة شركاء النجاح معانا وزارة التضامن الاجتماعي، جمعية توعية المرأة، جمعية كاريتاس مصر، ومفوضية الأمم المتحدة للاجئين. بالنسبة لوزارة التضامن الاجتماعي على مدار السنوات قدمت محافظة دمياط بالتعاون مع وزارة التضامن الاجتماعي كل الدعم للمنظمات العاملة مع اللاجئين، وأشركناهم في معارض وأنشطة واحتفالات، ووليناهم برعاية صحية، وتم توفير مراكز شباب لممارسة الأنشطة الرياضية والمسابقات، وكل هذا لدمج اللاجئين مع المجتمع المصري والمصري. مع منظمة كاريتاس أو شركة كاريتاس مصر قامت تحت إشراف وزارة التضامن الاجتماعي بعمل مركز مجتمعي بدمياط يقوم بتنفيذ مجموعة من البرامج والأنشطة لدمج اللاجئين مع المصريين، تحسين مثلا ظروف المعيشة. تم عمل 908 مقابلة لتقييم الاجتماعي للأسر اللاجئين،
8 people
وحصر
for the
عدد
refugees,
اللي
and we
موجود
have looked
منهم
into the people
وإرساله إلى مفوضية
around,
الأمم
and we sent
المتحدة
them to the
لتحديد المساعدات الشهرية لهذه الأمم.
UNHCR to
أيضا
estimate
تم
and assess their
عمل
needs.
توفير 72 منحة
We have provided 72
لمشروع في مجالات
scholarships
الخياطة والطبخ
in sewing,
والتنجيد والنجارة
cuisine,
وصيانة
cooking,
أجهزة الكمبيوتر
carpentry,
وغيرها.
and
وتم
like
أيضا
computer
تدريب عدد
system
178
maintenance.
شخص في
We have
مجال البحث
also
عن
trained
وظيفة بالتعاون مع منظمة
178
العمل
people
الدولية.
based on the International Labour
وتم
Organization
لذوي الاحتياجات
guidelines,
الخاصة
and for the
تسليم عدد
people with
25
special
إعانة
needs,
مالية طارئة
we have provided 25
وتسليم عدد
financial
15 جهاز
supports or
تعويضي
grants, and we have also
للحالات المالية.
supported them
وفي مجال
for their special
الصحة
needs.
في
Speaking of the
تم تقديم
healthcare
813 فرد
sector,
بصفة مستمرة تقديم العلاج
we have
الشهري
provided
ليهم.
a lot of services for them, such as the healthcare
وأيضا تم
system
تقديم خدمات
services
العلاج النفسي ل
for
145
about
فرد.
4,062
مع
refugees.
جمعية توعية
And
المرأة تم
also,
توفير
we have provided
مسكن
services for
ملائم
the youth and
وبيئة
sports
تعليمية
for
ملائمة.
more than 3,000
وتم دمج
refugees.
اللاجئين
have
مع
also
في أي معالجة لسلوك
included, of
يصدر
course, the
ضدهم من
refugees
خلال
and
الأنشطة الصيفية.
migrants in any
ودمج
summer
الحاصلين على
season
مؤهلات
activities
لتقديمهم في جمعيات لحين وصول أوراقهم
for
المفوضية
different things,
وإعانة الأسر
and
النازحة.
for the other
منها أيضا
families,
تسهيل إجراءات السفر
and
ومساعدات
of course
مالية
for the kind of
وكفالة
support and help,
تخييم وتوفير
and
كسوة
to
في
provide
الأعياد
more and
من
more
الملابس.
or special days.
مع مفوضية الأمم المتحدة
With the
للاجئين تم
UNHCR,
عمل
a lot of activities
خدمات
been
مجتمعية
conducted
كثيرة
for different services,
من ضمنها مثلا الاستفسار
including,
عن
for example,
استشارات الحماية الشخصية
such
المتعلقة
as
بالحماية القانونية،
the legal
رعاية
protection,
الأطفال، العنف القائم
child
على النوع
violence, and
والاجتماعي، الإسكان،
social
الدعم
solidarity,
النفسي،
housing, psychological support,
ودعم
mental
الفئات
care,
الأكثر ضعفا بين اللاجئين من تقديم
supporting the most
مساعدات
vulnerable
نقدية
and the
مباشرة،
privileged groups,
وبعض
and
البرامج
some programs,
للتدريب على إدارة مشاريع
training programs
لمحاولة من
to
لكسب
manage
الرزق
projects in order for livelihoods,
وتقديم بعض الخدمات الصحية
increase the
أيضا.
livelihoods, and also providing some healthcare services.
الخدمات المختلفة اللي تم تقديمها خلال الفترة اللي فاتت: خدمات الرعاية الصحية ل
As for the healthcare services,
4062 لاجئ،
we have
خدمات
provided
التعليم ما قبل الجامعي حوالي
have
2108
provided
لاجئ،
the services for more
خدمات
than
الشباب
4,000
والرياضة
refugees. As for the youth
3025
and the
لاجئ،
sports
خدمات
services, we
التعليم
have provided for
الجامعي
more than 3,000
215
refugees, and also for the university
رؤية
services, or
دمياط
before the
مدينة
university visits,
دمياط
for more than
ومحافظة
2,000
دمياط لدعم التعليم على مدى الحياة.
refugees. Speaking of the initiatives
تعزيز منظومة
conducted in
التعليم غير
Jakarta
الرسمي
City to
والمجتمعي،
support the lifelong learning and the
دعم
sports
تنمية
competition,
المهارات
entertainment
الرقمية
competitions, and the training
والمهنية
courses
للشباب
for
والفئات
the sake of
المستضعفة،
learning, particularly for the
إعداد كوادر
underprivileged and
محلية
vulnerable, most
قادرة على
vulnerable groups.
التعامل مع احتياجات المهاجرين واللاجئين مستقبلا. ويوجد هناك مبادرات أيضا لدعم التعلم مدى الحياة من خلال مراكز التدريب المهني المرتبطة بصناعة الأساس والحرف، وبرامج محو الأمية والتعليم المجتمعي، مبادرات التمكين الاقتصادي للمرأة والشباب، برامج التوعية والأنشطة الثقافية داخل المجتمعات المحلية. ممكن ان احنا نستفيد من التجارب المدن الاخرى عن طريق تبني نماذج لبرامج تعلم مدى الحياه موجهه للفئات الاكثر احتياجا، وتطوير برامج المهارات اللغويه والرقميه، وفتح قنوات تعاون مع المدن الاعضاء في الشبكات الدوليه، والاستفاده من فرص التمويل الدوليه في مجالات الادماج الاجتماعي والتعليم. بشكر حضراتكم جدا وشكرا لوقتكم.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eshiabi. It is indeed most impressive to hear about these efforts of the city of Damietta in supporting refugees and how to work with national and international partners, as you have mentioned, with UNHCR, but also the Women's Awareness Association, and how you work together with them to create better conditions and support the continuity of learning and the social integration of different groups of migrants. Thank you so much for this very practical insight into the work of a learning city to support refugees and migrants. We will now, I hope that in the end we will have time for some questions, because I can see that the Q&A is filling up, and also I took note that Amir Radfa had raised his hand. If you allow me, I will address it after our last presentation. And for this, I would like to invite Ms. Salome Terra from, she's from the country director of adult education for Nairobi County in Kenya. And she will give us some insights into the work on refugees and migrants in Nairobi. You have 5 minutes as well. Salome Terra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, everybody? Hello?
Very well.
Thank you so much. I am the County Director, Adult Learning and Education, Nairobi County. And Nairobi County is a learning city, and it's a major destination for refugees and migrants in East Africa. And as you can see, the county is a designated learning city, which is committed to inclusive learning and lifelong learning. And the refugees and migrants are recognized as contributors to our social cohesion, economic growth, and urban resilience. And we normally have them participate in many of our activities, especially you can see from the third slide that those are refugees of the Somali origin and Ethiopians. They learn languages, and also they have skills, they have businesses that they can run. So what are the learning needs of these refugees and migrants in Nairobi? We find that they need adult literacy, numeracy, and formal education for their children, especially. They also learn language, English and Kiswahili, because most of them are integrated in the local communities in the estates within Nairobi. And they also have skills where we need them to be absorbed so much in the recognition of prior learning and skills certification, which is being worked on. They also join the technical, vocational, and digital skills. They also have lessons from for entrepreneurship and financial literacy. And most of the time, they undertake civic education and psychosocial support through learning in the areas where they are. And the civic education is not necessarily for voting, but it helps them now know how they are going to handle themselves during that time. And you can see we have the language class, which is in Kamukunji, which is in Eastleigh. And then the other side, we have Refugee who are having the fashion and beauty graduation for the learners. So we can simply say that they are involved in all aspects other than just the basic literacy and all that. They're also involved in the formal education, where they even take national examinations for those who are able to join the classes. And these learners, as they go through all these, they are faced with various barriers, and most of the barriers are legal and administrative. For example, in Italy, you can be having learners in class, and then you find that the security have come, destabilize the class because they do not have those papers that are required. They also have language barriers and limited skills recognition, because as much as they have the skills, they are faced with people understanding them, how they can share these skills that they have, because they lack that language to communicate. They are also faced with economic vulnerability and competing survival priorities, in that most of them, when they come, they don't settle in high-end estates. They settle in those low-income estates, and so they are faced with those problems of being economically exploited. They are unable to survive. because of that. They also have the digital exclusion because you find most of them, especially women and older learners, do not have those skills to use the existing digital areas like the cyber caves. It becomes a challenge for them to use them. And then they also have social marginalization and discrimination, where you find the locals in the country trying to abuse them because of that. So to enable us address this across all the learning areas and levels, we've tried to work with some partners and stakeholders. We as adult learning and education, we offer them adult literacy and community learning, including functional literacy. There are areas where UNHCR has tried to come in, especially on access and skills development and coordination support, but still there is a weak link which we need to know how this UNHCR can work close with the adult ones who come with the children within the country, and they have to feed them, they have to get medical care for them, they have to handle their education needs. Windel International Kenya is doing a great job, but we need to look at the vocational training level for especially the mothers. Refuge is a very active place where we are having, at least they are taking care of the she's, the ladies, the refugee women. But I'm worried about the men, and I've been asking who is taking care of the male refugees. Jesuit Refugee Services is also giving psychosocial support and education on small scale. ICRS Catholic organization is also giving them at least an opportunity to learn in the vocational training institutes where they pay their fees. So what are we advocating for? Strategic approaches for this bid to be sustainable. We need to have community-based learning centers within the urban settlement where these refugees are, so that they can access easily. We need to have blended learning models whereby we have them get face-to-face or digital, so that they are able to learn comfortably. We also need to have skills to employment pathways whereby they can at least get jobs within the labor market. Entrepreneurship and livelihood support programs to be enhanced so that they can handle those basic issues at their level. And then we need to integrate host communities and refugee learning initiatives so that we are able to make sure that they are comfortable in those communities where they are staying. What impact do they have on the city? In Nairobi, they have improved self-reliance and employability. If they are given that opportunity, it will even have them have a stronger social cohesion between the host communities and the migrant communities. Their youth will be able to participate very well in issues to do with the innovation together with our youths, and also they will be able to contribute to a more inclusive and resilient urban economy. What have we learned from them? We have learned that Nairobi City will play a central role in refugee migration and inclusion if it opens up its doors for access and accepting the challenges the refugees are facing. The learning pathways must be flexible and tailored so that even if they go back to their countries, they are able to fit in. So that calls for at least a curriculum that will be tied to ways when they go back to their country, they fit in at whatever level they have gone. Partnerships are also essential for us to have sustainability with these refugees. And then lifelong learning supports dignity, protection, and development among as the refugees, because when they get into to Nairobi County, they are able to fit in if they are given the first 1 or 2 months and they are well taken care of. Then inclusive learning and strengths and urban resilience so that they are not made to suffer within the country or within the learning city. Because we are looking at a learning city whereby anybody who comes in, you fit in and you don't feel left. Even if you came with those social aspects, you have the psychosocial problems, you should be taken care of, not to escalate them, but at least to reduce them. So in conclusion, Nairobi County Learning City demonstrates an all-inclusive lifelong learning for both humanitarian and development imperative. And as a learning city, we will continue to strengthen the system and empower the refugees and the migrants so that they can thrive. And investing in learning for all residents will build a strong and more cohesive and resilient community. That is all, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Salome Terra. As always, the time is very short for each presentation. We understand that these topics are complex and you have a lot of activities. So thank you very much for sharing these brief insights. We much appreciate your presentation, giving us a bit of an understanding of the needs of refugee groups in Nairobi country and county and measures taken to bring down the barriers that you've also mentioned for lifelong learning, from limited skills recognition, but also social marginalizations. I think this was really very, very interesting. We have only a few minutes left for the Q&A session. And we have quite a lot of questions actually posted in the Q&A box, so it's a bit difficult to select, but I have one question which was posted by Esther Kile, and it's for Mr. Ratwa. And Esther wrote that you mentioned countries like Kenya regarding the support for refugees and displaced persons in lifelong learning. Do you have, what about the Democratic Republic of Congo, which also has a significant number of refugees and displaced persons? So, Amir Ratwa, I don't know, do you have experiences also in the situation in Congo and something you could share from that context?
Yeah, of course. I'm happy just to mention that currently under the new agreement between UNHCR and MasterCard Foundation, and we were, of course, in like inception workshop with our UNHCR colleagues, including DRC colleagues of UNHCR from livelihoods, from education. We are going actually to implement a big project for 5 years, beginning of next year. So, and that includes livelihoods, of course, entrepreneurship, higher education, and as I said, it's a multi-year program for 5 years, and DRC is included. So that's the latest update I can share.
Thank you so much for this very concise response also. Maybe we have time for a second question. So Augustine Contend also posted several questions, and let me pick the first one. How can cities effectively assess and recognize the skills and prior learning of refugees who arrive without formal documentation in order to ensure continuity in education and access to employment? So this is a topic that has been also mentioned in several presentations today, and we're very much aware, and also at URL we work at the topic of skills recognition also for refugees and migrants. So I'd like to invite maybe Audrey Hickox, if you have experience in that and could share something from your work in respect to skills recognition.
Yes, sure. There's a couple of emerging good practices. We haven't cracked the code yet, unfortunately, but there are things like skills passports, but there are also ways where employers, but also city administrations can create systems to assess qualifications through tests and through practical skills assessments rather than relying on documentation. So we've seen this in several countries in several contexts, both for kind of incoming migrants, but also for returning migrants. So the Philippines actually has a very good approach to doing this, and they have a whole government system set up where they kind of can test and assess the skills of Filipinos abroad so that when they arrive home, they can have a qualification that can help them to easily access employment back upon arrival.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And will be interesting to also work together further to improve these recognition systems. And as I mentioned also at URL, this is a really important area of work. So looking at the time, we have to stop this very brief Q&A segment of the webinar already. I would like to thank very much the 4 presenters from today from IOM and UNHCR and the 2 learning cities of Damietta and Nairobi. Thanks for your thoughtful and inspiring contributions to today's webinar. Likewise, I would like to express my thanks to all the participants who joined us today, and your interest and engagement. Have been a lot of activity in the Q&A box, but also a lot of comments posted in the chat. So it's really nice to see this interest. I hope that the presentations provided you all with valuable insights, that you could take something with you to be implemented in the different cities to support different groups of migrants and refugees in your context. As initially mentioned, this was the last edition of our webinar series this year. Let me also take the time, therefore, to thank all those who make it happen. Thanks to the interpreters and the partners who are sponsoring interpretation. A big thanks, of course, to all UL colleagues involved in the organization and in the preparations of this webinar series throughout the year, from the GNLC Secretariat, from our team, but also from the communications unit, the URL, and other teams who are supporting. Finally, I very much hope that we'll see you again next year when we will continue this series with a new edition, and all UNESCO learning cities are, of course, most welcome to express their interest in presenting the city's activities. And further information on this, including the calendar, will be available on our website in January. And with that, I wish you all a very nice end of the year and a good afternoon or evening, and see you soon. Bye-bye.